Welcome to FreeSBC, How to Get Started, a webinar event hosted by TelcoBridges. Some introductions to get started. I'm Alan Percy. I'm the Senior Director of Product Marketing for TelcoBridges and today's event moderator. I'm responsible for driving awareness of the session border controller solutions from TelcoBridges. And joining us also today is Luc Morissette. He's the Director of Customer Support and one of the founders of TelcoBridges. He's based in Montreal today. And Luc, thanks for being part of today's event. All right, so we're going to move on and give a little overview of what to expect today. We welcome to the second of the FreeSBC webinar series and the first of our how-to sessions. This series started on an opening session where we described the new approach in the offering a session border controller based on a freemium business model. We also describe the capabilities and services included in both free and paid versions. A recording of that session is available on freesbc.com. And if you're now just joining us for the first session, we encourage you to go back and review that previous content. And with this session, we plan to share the process of getting started with FreeSBC, focusing on the installation and activation of the software in a virtualized environment. Later sessions will cover more in-depth SIP configuration. We'll call routing, network performance, analytics, cloud deployments on Amazon Web Services. We'll also cover bare metal installations and much, much more. Our hope is to keep a regular rhythm of releasing new sessions every few weeks, publishing the library on YouTube, and of course on freesbc.com. Well, let's have an honest conversation about the process of installing software. A real weakness with many software products are the complex installation procedures. It seems sometimes that the Rube Goldberg has had a hand in creating software installation instructions, and this is especially true with open source solutions. And many of these depend on numerous external packages requiring a meticulous sequence of installation steps, not unlike what you're seeing here with our puppies here today. The result is a time-consuming and manual process that requires specialized expertise, is highly error-prone, and as a result, drives up the actual cost of ownership. Luc and his team of developers at TelcoBridges felt it important to keep costs down, not only for the customer, but also for TelcoBridges with a simple and straightforward installation process. So what do we have planned for this session today? We're going to cover the software download process. We'll go through the actual installation and activation. You'll see Luc go through the process in his lab. We'll do an initial configuration, very simple initial configuration. Then we'll spend a few minutes talking about getting help and how you can either work with our wiki, our forums, and also our professional services team. And then we'll talk about what's coming next in the series. And lastly, of course, we'll cover your questions as we go along here. So let's get started with joining Luc in his software lab. He's well, he's a likeness maybe to our gentleman here, but he's got a much more sophisticated setup. So Luc, why don't you share your desktop and then start out by explaining your virtual lab environment.
All right, thanks, Alan. What I have in my lab is a VMware infrastructure loaded up on a server. So I will use this to upload my VMware image, and then we can run it, our FreeSBC on there.
Okay.
Right. So what we want to do here is probably get that image, right? So to get that image, we need to go to the FreeSBC site. So it's freesbc.telcobridges.com. Once you're on there, you can go ahead and get the image. And when you get to this page, you have two choices, with or without support. So I know this was covered in a previous webinar, but more or less with support is you get additional features for this image. When you want to click, for example, with annual support, you don't need to use your credit card right now. Okay, so you still have some time to try out the FreeSBC before you can purchase the support. Is that all right, Alan?
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right.
And so obviously somebody will now will click on FreeSBC with support, and there you go. You're taken to a form where we ask some basic information.
That's right. And here you have to choose how many sessions you will be using on that SBC, right? So here I put 5,000 sessions for the purpose of this demonstration.
Okay.
Then when I click download here, it will download an image, OVA image for VMware, and it will also send me a product key that I will receive in my email inbox, okay? So if you look at your inbox, then you get that product key that you can use for this SBC, all right?
Got it. So now we've downloaded the software.
Yes.
So now we have to provision it or upload it into the virtual machine.
Exactly. So I have my VMware server here, which runs multiple systems, but here I want to add a new virtual machine. So I need to go here in virtual machine and create, register a virtual machine. Okay. Here I have multiple options, but I choose the one deploy a machine from an OVA file because this is what I have. So when I go here, I click on next. I need to enter a name for this machine. This is a name that will show up in the VMware list of virtual machine here. And the next step will be to upload my OVA file, which I receive in my download folder here. It's an image that looks like this, VSBC VMware.ova, and you just have to drag it here in the window. Here you have to choose on which data store this new VM will be loaded on. Here I have only one, so that's simple. I need to choose here the network port. This network port needs to be connected to your lab environment, which is reachable from outside. In my case, it is the guest network here. That's how I can reach this, this system. By default, it will be using DHCP, so getting an IP from the system. Here with this provisioning, there's two options. It's preferred to use the tick option. And here I will choose the option to power on automatically. Once I do next, then I have all my options and I can start this virtual machine. Okay, so if I open here my recent tasks, I can see that I have my VMware image that is loading up on the system, and this will take a few minutes to do. Right. I have already loaded up a similar SBC just before this this one, so we can use it instead to show you what are the next steps. So I have my FreeSBC webinar A4 here machine. And as you can see, it is started. And why I'm going here is to get the IP address of that system. Okay, so it's 192.168.101.90. And this is how I will reach that system. So now I use another browser window, this one here. I enter this IP 192.168.101.90 and I add a specific port, column 12358. All right, so this is the default port to reach the FreeSBC session border controller. All good until now, Alan?
Yep, so far so good. I'm following along.
Very good. So here I have then the initial configuration of the TelcoBridges SBC. So here the only thing we can do is do continue. We need to accept the end user license agreement, which is, I guess, pretty standard. Here we need to have the product key. This product key is what we received when we logged on to the FreeSBC and downloaded the image.
Right, so in this case, an email, right?
Yeah, we got it in the email, and that's the key I have here. So the key looks like this, VTB, and some characters following that. Also, here we want to set the host name of the system.
Mm-hmm.
So the host name can be whatever is meaningful in your network. In my case, I used the FreeSBC webinar name. And just click on continue here. Then it asks you to enter a SSH password. So this SSH password can be a string of characters. It can be, let's say, anything, but there will be some verification done if there is not enough, let's say, special characters or capital letters. So usually we try to use a password that is long enough. Here I'm putting the same password for the SSH access, which most of the cases is not needed. And the web access here, the same password. Two ways we can log on to the system. One is standalone and one is redundant. So you can have a system in 1+1 mode. So here I will choose a standalone system, which is the simplest form of SBC.
Okay.
Then we can have hardware transcoding. So you can use external transcoding for G711 to G729, for example. However, in this case, I will choose no transcoding. When you get to this page, you need to choose which interfaces will be used in the system. One of them, this one here, is MGMT, Management Interface. That's the one we are using now here on 192.168.101.90. Okay, so this one we need to keep and not change. And by default, I name it MGMT0 as an interface.
Mm.
Then here we have two other interfaces. So you can actually, when you start this VM, you can choose to have 1, 2, or more interfaces. And these interfaces, we need to choose the mode LAN 1, which means SBC controlled interfaces. Here you have the MAC address of these interfaces, which could be useful later when we want to connect them to some networks. We need to know what are those MAC addresses, and you see them here. Here I have two networks. I will just name them like this, and by default, it gives you the name VoIP 0, VoIP 1. You can change that as if you want to.
Got it.
Okay. Then here it confirms the stuff we have done. So if you are okay with this, we can just go and accept this. Okay. Now, what does the system do with this? It takes the interfaces we have added and will configure them in the system with the names that we gave them. In our case, we gave VoIP 0 and VoIP 1. It will configure the system as a standalone, or if you have chosen 1+1, it will configure the system to be primary or secondary if you have two session border controllers. And so that it makes it ready for the rest of the process, which is loading the license in the unit. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So here, yeah, it takes maybe 1 or 2 minutes to do this part here. Almost done, connecting and validating. Here it says connecting and validating database. The database is actually a configuration database that is used to store everything that you configure on the system. This database can be saved outside of the system and can be used later on other systems. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or if you want, for example, to recover this system, you can use this database to do that.
Got it.
Okay. So here it's restarting the web interface. That's why it took a few seconds, and then it gets us to this username and password. So default username is root. Okay, and the password is the one we used just before, right? In the configuration, I gave it a special password there. log into this system. Okay, so here we're logged into the system. You can see on the left side, you have a status, you have backups. This is where you will configure the SBC, right? With the IP interfaces, SIP networks, different network access points here, the routing and troubleshooting and maintenance stuff, right? So here. Now we see that our FreeSBC webinar A4 as an invalid license host. So, and you see it on the top here as also no valid host or adapter, right? So we want to click here to install this license. Okay, so you see here the product key. That's what we entered when we first logged on to the system. And what you want to do here is get or renew license. So we will click on this here. So this will access our license server. So it goes to the wide area network, connects to the license server, and downloads a license file. You see we received it here. If you don't have access to directly to the wide area network, you can do download history here and send this file to our email support@telcobridges.com, and we will process that offline.
Got it.
Okay, so here in our case, we already have it. So what we want to do here, upload license. We will choose our files here. So this is the file that was downloaded on the system. Upload license. And it has installed this license. The last step we have to do here is, well, if we go back in status, you will see that the SBC section is still red. Okay, it says not ready SBC. So the last step we have to do is to reboot that SBC. So we have to go here in host. Click on the status here. Select the host we have. Go down here, action, reboot, and then apply action. This will reboot the host. Here you see reboot required, right? That's the other place where you can see what you have to do. Okay, so now this server will be restarting. This will take a minute or two. So
yeah, so maybe it makes sense to go take a peek at some of the support materials that you've got on the web.
Yeah, exactly. So we have our wiki, right? So it's docs.telcobridges.com. And in this TB wiki, we can follow the VMware installation, which is what we just did now. You can see requirements for larger systems. Maybe you require more memory, disk space, or network interface cards. Here we have how to launch the instance. So we saw this is exactly what we did right now. Create register VM, choose the OVA file, and all the steps are described here. So you can follow that step by step.
Yeah, so it looks like there's pretty good instructions.
Yeah.
And there's more materials on the wiki than just the installation instructions too, right?
Exactly. There's the configuration. So once you've done installing the VMware system, it shows you how to configure. So you have configuration of all these items, and you have the list of SIP and networks and other functionalities, and you have the status of all these functionalities as well.
Very good.
Okay, let me just check if it's done here. It's coming back up slowly. So I will show you also how to contact our TelcoBridges technical support. Here we have America, Europe Technical Center, telephone numbers, email. If you want, you can have access to our tracking system. We have the Asian office and the Turkish office as well. You have also a 24/7 number in case of emergency. And support team is all on Skype, so you can reach the team on Skype if you need to contact us.
Sounds good.
Okay, let's see here.
That's
So
back.
now we're back up. So let's see if that worked correctly. I need my password again here. Okay, so now you see here the status. Looks good. If we go in the general status, we see that the SBC is now green. So that means our interfaces are now protected with SBC functionalities and security. All right.
So what other reasons would someone need to reboot like we did for the key? Is there any other big reasons?
Yeah, well, when we upgrade to another major version,
Mm-hmm.
the unit will be restarted, but that will be done automatically, right? Otherwise, we don't want to reboot those systems.
Right.
They will always be up, and any changes that we do are live, any updates, so we do that. It's all done and added incrementally on the system.
What about configuration changes?
Configuration changes, if you add IP interfaces, new SIP networks, new users, no problem. Everything is done live on these systems.
Yeah, without a reboot.
Yeah, and then Alan, that's pretty much it, right?
Yep.
Of course, there's some advanced configuration we can do, but otherwise, we can see this maybe in other webinars, right?
Yep, which we do have planned. So appreciate the demonstration here. I think we'll be scheduling some more webinars to get into some of this, and you'll be back to share the whole experience. So thank you for sharing this. So let's go back to the slides.
All right, thank you.
All right, well, as Luc shared, there's some really useful resources, and I've put these in the slide deck here. I saw someone ask this question about that a little bit earlier. About where the resources were. Of course, the links are here on this website. Almost everything can be navigated from the freesbc.com. We got the recorded webinars there. We have links to the not only the wiki but also to the forums on that particular page and that site. So that's a great place to start, no matter which one of the resources you're looking for. And as Luc showed, the point at which you register and then download the software also starts on freesbc.com, which I saw there was a question about that. Where do you start with that? As Luc showed, there's a handful of places you can use to get support based on different time zones. We've got certainly the facility in Montreal where Luc and Nicole sit, and also too we've got some staff in EMEA for technical support based in Turkey. So those are the current contact information points. So what have we accomplished today? A quick summary. What you saw is downloading FreeSBC, installation on a virtual machine, and in a moment we'll just talk about bare metal. I saw there was a question about the bare metal installation, and the process of downloading and activating the license key. And you saw that was pretty straightforward. Some basic IP configuration that Luc stepped through with the SBC. We'll, in future sessions, dig into a little bit deeper onto that. Reviewed how to get help, not only the wiki and the forum group, but also to the support group. And when we talked briefly about what to do and where to go for future sessions and what we've got planned on that. And certainly would love your feedback on which one of the topics we're talking about in the future sessions to help you with it. And last, we're going to answer your questions here in a moment, and we're going to make you all FreeSBC superheroes by the time I get done with this. So while we wrap up, let's take a look at some of the questions here, and then we'll close out. So let's take a look here. So there's a question about with bare metal, and without spoiling the answer on a future session, Luc, could you just give a quick overview of what the differences are between what you did with a VM version and bare metal?
Yeah, well, actually, in all cases, we prefer to have a dedicated management interface. Okay, one of the reasons is that That management interface is not protected with the SBC functionalities, and it's used only for accessing and configuring that system. And then we have another data Ethernet port, okay, which is used for SBC functionality. We can have just one interface, but a lot of time we prefer to have two other interfaces. So in total, normally, 3 interfaces would be the best. One for management, one for public networks, and one for private networks. But it can also work with just one management interface and one data interface for both private and public management networks.
Okay. And is that use VLANs to separate them, or just
yeah,
separate
exactly. Use VLANs. Both of them can be on different VLANs, and if the network is well designed, then that's no problem.
Great, great. Okay. Another question about the complexity of just trying to get a reboot. And I think a lot of what you had to go through was probably 80% of what you did today was configuring VMware. I wish we could make that simpler, but I don't know, maybe just well, especially in simplifying things in a bare metal. Maybe
actually, Alan, I went through the optimization section, right? If you want, if you need to have a few hundred channels, then you don't need to optimize like I did. Here, I wanted to show the 5,000 session installation, which then requires just a bit of optimization.
Right, right. And then also within the software to do a reboot, I mean, obviously you had to dig into a couple of menu choices to get to a reboot, but that's probably carefully guarded, right? It's like the little guard over over the launch switch in the nuclear silo, right?
Well, that's the thing, right? We never want to reboot this system. The only time we want to reboot the system is the first time we install the license. Right. We never want to reboot. We don't need to reboot these systems. You can add any type of configuration in the system, change them, change the routing, and you never have to reboot the system, except when you install the key, the license key, the first time.
Right, right. Question about, sort of why did we get into the, the free market with this when there's a lot of soft switches out there. Actually, we addressed that in the prior session in pretty detailed depth as to what's the logic behind the business model. Maybe we won't dig into it here too much, but it really is about creating a disruptive environment that gives us an opportunity to work with more people, get people started at a very low cost up front, and then provide quality commercial software under a license arrangement down the road. So it's more about getting the market started with a disruptive model. And again, we covered that in more detail in the prior session. So calls per second, good question based on VM sizes. So maybe where would somebody find that? And I don't know, do you want to share for a quick second, show where that data is on the portal?
Actually, I don't remember where.
Yeah,
where it is, but it's something around 1,000, right? 1,000 calls per second, and twice as much call attempts per second on these systems.
Right, right.
But we have it somewhere. I just don't remember where.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember where it was too. It was maybe on the data sheet. Anyway, so another question here asking about some routing. And there's a specific question. It looks like maybe offline we'll have to tackle it from Salam about basic routing. And again, that might be something that either could post in the forum. A question about the Alliance Partner Program. So yes, the Alliance Partner Program is a part of our strategy, and the idea being is TelcoBridges provides the SBC, some of the closely related functions and features, but obviously there's a limit to what TelcoBridges can provide. So some of the areas that we're building alliance relationships in are in billing and some of the call routing, fraud detection, other areas that might leverage some of the APIs that work into the system. And that we do cover a little bit of detail in the initial opening session webinar, but we will be announcing much more detail on that in the next month or so here as the program gets more solidified. And so Jason, I'll reach out to you directly with some information, some preliminary information, what we're doing with the partner program. So better performance using pass-through NICs. So maybe you want to explain about maybe some of the performance optimizations that happen with NICs, and then the other thing too about the media bypass. Maybe make a mention of that.
Yep, sure. The pass-through, yes, will give better performance on a virtual machine. However, it locks up some of those networks specifically for that virtual machine. So it's sort of bypassing all the VMware infrastructure to access directly the network cards. And it's just like if you have a bare metal server in that case. So yes, it does improve performance. Again, like we discussed a bit earlier, for a few hundred channels won't make a much difference. Maybe 5,000 channel neither. But if you want to go over 5,000 channels, pass-through NICs, if that is possible on your infrastructure, for sure, I would recommend to use that. The transcoding we offer, it is an external hardware that you need to connect. It can be connected to a VMware infrastructure, that's no problem, but this transcoding device is a physical device that needs to be installed separately from the system.
And it's essentially a DSP farm to do the
that's right.
codec
That's
conversion.
Right. And I can also answer the question about your basic routing problem. Well, you can contact support and we can help you. So
Yep. And then there was just a asking about the concurrent calls per second. Again, maybe we'll just sort of reiterate that.
yeah, so the target I used for today's presentation was 5,000 concurrent calls per second. So that's 5,000 SIP and RTP sessions. The systems, however, can go up to 60,000
sessions, but not per second, but concurrent sessions. And then the calls per second.
Oh, concurrent, sorry, yes. Concurrent calls per second, it's like 1,000 calls per second.
Right. And that, you know, someone was kind of confirming that all transcoding requires the external hardware, and that is the state. Yes, the DSPs are required for tone detection, tone convert, DTMF conversion, all the way through to wireless codec, HD codec conversion.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it looks like that's the end of our Q&A session, which is great. Some good questions. Also might mention too, we had a pretty extensive list of questions, and some of these look familiar from last month's session, and you can find those questions and answers to those questions on the forum. So if you go to forums.freesbc.com, you'll find that FAQ section, and that has, I think there was about 70 questions that were asked in that session, and we very carefully researched them all and posted all the answers there. So that's a great place to go for more questions after this. So just wrapping up, obviously we've showed you what we think is a great platform for the future. With performance, you heard some of the figures. It's very easy to deploy. It's been highly reliable. We've had numerous customers say that they've never had to reboot it except to install keys. And with a 1+1 configuration provides carrier grade reliability. The cost of ownership, obviously, with eliminating the capex and the low support costs, allows organizations to get started early with their solution, and then as their customer base grows, they can add more functionality through our partner allowance and some of the additional features that we sell under our license agreement. And we think this is really clearly the path of the future. Not only is it cloud ready, and again, we'll talk about some of the cloud platforms in future sessions, but it really is a customer-driven roadmap, meaning through the forum and through some of the interaction with our customers, we're managing, controlling the roadmap, and the Alliance Partner Program, as we mentioned, is a great way to extend it. So, as noted, we think that this is a great platform for the future. So, quick wrapping up. Again, a lot of this is all found on freesbc.com, and we really do think if you try it, you'll like it. We've gotten, I think, over 250 trials ongoing right now in some 50+ countries. So you can join that group of people doing their evaluations and look forward to it. So with that, looks like we're just about out of time, and I'd like to thank Luc for sharing his experience, and he'll be participating in future sessions too. And I'd also like to thank our audience for spending time with us today. As noted in the opening housekeeping, we'll receive, those of you that were here live today will receive an email tomorrow with links to the slides and a recording of today's event. Please do feel free to share the content with others in your network. And want to wrap up saying thanks for spending the time with us today. And that's it from here. Wishing you all a really good day.